Oh, good.
Faith,
Yeah.
your speaker's on.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. We're just amused that you're laughing. There's only this, but this isn't a thing. And it's only things that are knowable. So human beings say they know things. And yeah, it does seem as though we can know things. But it might be obvious that that knowledge is empty. That when we say we know things, we don't actually know what we mean by that knowledge, by that knowing. It might be that we don't actually know what we mean when we say we know. And so you've heard this message spoken about as not knowing or unknowing. And really all that is because, of course, it then seems possible, maybe then I can know unknowing. I could know not knowing. Make not knowing a thing. Make nothing a thing. Make emptiness a thing. Well, those words, of course, as words, they do sound like things. That's all that language ever can do. But what we're pointing at is that this that we're speaking of isn't knowable, and yet it's all that is ever known. And the knowing of it is complete without any knowledge, without any understanding. So the wholeness, the completeness, the sense of there couldn't be any more is empty. Empty of meaning, empty of purpose. And yet, purpose and meaning could appear as this, that's empty too. And emptiness can sound nihilistic. It can sound dreadful. And it kind of is dreadful for me, because it's dreadful in that it's an impossibility, a complete impossibility, that you could know nothing, that you could know emptiness, there isn't anything to see. There isn't anything, there is no finding. And all I ever wanted was to find out. I wanted to find out what the hell was really going on. What the hell is going on here? Well, what's going on is what's going on, and that is nothing going on. There's no benefit for the individual, for me, in knowing that. We're not talking about the benefit for me. We're talking about the end of that possibility, that I could find out, that I could know, that I could understand. And unsurprisingly, this message is never very popular. You know, you look throughout history, it's always been in different ways, but the song has been sung by different birds, and it's been heard by a few of the other birds, but most birds don't hear it because it's very obvious there's nothing in it for me. And really, when most human beings, with a very profound sense of, this isn't how I want it to be, so tell me how I can make it right. And this says, well, there's nothing wrong. And there's no possibility of it ever being more right than it is. That will never be popular. And so it seems obvious here now that no one would ever choose to hear this. So if you have heard this and it's hit home, or it's resonated, or whatever term seems right for you, that you can hear it and it feels, I want to say true, but it's not true, but for want of a better word, it feels, well, that feels right. That feels, I've really always known this without knowing what I know. If that does hit home, then it's not you that's heard it. It's not self that's heard it. It just can't be. But it can be heard. And it seems like once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. Everything's singing the same song. So you see it, you feel it, but you don't know what that it is. It isn't anything particular. And it's obvious that it's nothing, and yet it's everything. And this is not about transcendence in any sense. There's nothing to be transcended. It's, again, it's an impossibility. How and who would transcend when this is all? I can't transcend my mother doing the washing up whilst I'm doing a Zoom meeting. It's an impossibility. Oh dear. Thanks, Mum. So if you want to get high and mighty, what you need is to have no internet in your place where you actually live, so that you have to go to your mother's to do the meetings, and have your mother think it's okay to do the washing up whilst you're, you know, trying to be profound. She wasn't. And that is the way to stay very grounded. Ah. It was very appropriate. You might think I staged that to just say, you know, this is not about transcending ordinary, very ordinary humanness. And that's all we're ever speaking of. This being human. Of course, you don't have to know being human. There is only, for humans, there isn't anything else. What else would you want to be? Well, you might fantasize about being a bird. I had endless fantasies as a child about flying. You probably did as well. You know, about being something other than, you could say, I am. Because I am is the sense of, well, I want to be more than I am. Well, there isn't I am. And so how impossible would it be to be more than that? And there is seemingly a great relief in that, the stopping trying, or the trying stopping is a better way of putting it, that the trying stops. It's not replaced by anything, you know, because that's what me always said. So what if I stop trying? What would happen then? It's not a relief for me, but there is just so much peace and rest in the absence, which is unnoticeable. There is no noticing the absence of me. There's nothing to be noticed. But without that constant striving to be good enough, life is immeasurably easier. Not without pain, not without suffering, but there's just an immense difference between my pain and suffering and pain and suffering. I mean, I've heard speakers say that, you know, what we're speaking of is the end of suffering. I just think it's saying too much. It is the end of my suffering, but being human is painful. If you take emotions to be pain, this is nakedly human without the clothing that I wear. You know, we're speaking of life in the raw. I am the one who was guarded. I am the one who protected myself from life full on, life just being as it is. Life unfiltered. Because I said, as me, I always said to myself, it would be too much. I need to, you know, I need to filter life because I won't be able to cope. I won't be able to cope with the sorrow, the loss, you could say the reality of how life is in the raw. It was a lie. It's the way that I kept myself alive. And above all, what I protected myself from was love. The love would kill me. The love's too much. And I don't mean love of relationship, I mean this. Just life as it is. Too much life. Whereas there really is, there was nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear from life. Life doesn't know you. Life is not separate. And not being afraid of life is really what we're speaking about. And without a fear of life and what life may bring, will bring, has brought, is bringing, there's an okayness that is impossible to describe, an okayness about everything, regardless of whether it's wonderful or dreadful. There's no hiding place. There's no one who could hide. The idea that I could be exposed for who I really am, just an illusion that I told myself, that I convinced myself that I could keep myself safe, and that life was dangerous for me.
Eligio has his hand up.
Eligio, he's not here.
Yes. No, I'm here. Hey guys. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm out here. It might be, I hate Bluetooth and it's windy. Let me know if I need to go inside.
No, you're it's quite clear.
Okay, first of all, I don't think gurus are supposed to have mothers, nor wives, nor husbands.
I know.
Secondly, yeah, that's what I want, dude. I want to know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
What the fuck is going on? So is that what this message is? Is that the message is, hey, I would never know what the fuck is going on, so give up. And then, but my question to you is, was that the question you would ask when you were seeking?
Yes. Spot on, yeah. That's what that's pretty much sums up seeking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
So, and the most amazing thing is nothing needs to change in order for that to stop, but it just might stop.
Right. You didn't laugh at my jokes, but thank you.
No, I do like your jokes. I like your jokes, and of course, I am a very poor guru.
Thank you, Tim.
No, thank you. No, that does sum up the dilemma. And of course, if you've been listening to Non-Duality, it's much worse for the seeker. You know, that's why this message can take seeking to a crescendo, you could say, to I don't know, to the edge. It's like pushing, because it's not offering you what the seeker really desires, which is some kind of resolution. This is the impossibility of resolution. There is no resolution. Resolution is not possible. There's nothing to resolve. Because this isn't speaking, I'm not speaking about you know, there is a self and a self to be lost. Because that seems like non-duality is suggesting the resolution would be the absence of me. That's not what's being suggested. It's saying there isn't me. It's not the same thing. It might sound similar, but it's not. There aren't human beings walking around with a self and other human beings walking around on Earth without a self. But it may say, because that's, you know, that's, again, that can sound like that's what's being suggested. Because somebody said to me, well, you don't sound as though you've lost yourself. I can hear a self there. Well, of course you can hear whatever you hear. If you speak to a human being and you're coming from a place of self, then the only thing you can see in other human beings is they're another me. Completely different from this me, because I'm me. There's only me. And there's only you. I can't say what's in its place. It's not like everyone is now me. I was listening to someone the other day and they said, well, everyone is, you know, once self falls away, then everyone is myself. So it's just, I see myself. Well, that couldn't be further from how it's experienced when I meet other human beings. When I meet other human beings, I meet a completely unique human being. And somebody said to me, well, can you tell when you meet another empty? You know, you're empty. When you meet another empty, you know straight away, don't you? I know. What would I see? How would I know? What would be the clues? What would be the indicators of that? No.
Jenny has a hand up.
Jenny.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
I was wondering something my mom asked me this morning. Does this change the way we deal with our emotions?
There's no answer to that, Jenny. There isn't anyone dealing with emotions. Emotions just, I mean, the question comes from a place of, well, at the moment I deal with them like this and it's pretty shit. So what I'd like is a new strategy of how to deal with them. And so I manage them better and I deal with them in a better way. Which sort of speaking of the end of dealing with them. They're no deal, you know, there's not a deal. The one who was dealing with them, because emotions really aren't a big deal. I mean, God, doesn't self make a big deal out of emotions? Really? Oh God, it's such a big deal. But really, emotions are not a big deal. Emotions are just what they are. It's like saying clouds are a big deal for the sky. Well, they're not, are they? The sky doesn't even notice the clouds, but the clouds are seemingly there. But I mean, so so the straightforward answer, sorry, that was round the houses. The straightforward answer is no. There's no. We're speaking about the end of any strategies, really. You know, strategies are all redundant. So whatever strategies you had, that are not working, it's not that you abandon them. They just, the one who would use them doesn't use them anymore. There's no, I mean, what we're not speaking about any, you know, emotions being better managed or better dealt with in a better way. Emotions don't need dealing with. They don't need dealing with.
Are they felt differently because there's no one to feel them?
But they are, yeah. The no one feeling them is, they're felt more when there's no one feeling them.
So do
Well,
they last?
not necessarily. That can sound misleading. It's not necessarily they're more. They're just whatever they are, just as they are. But I'm not. I would never even vaguely suggest that what's being spoken about will help you deal with emotions in a better way. Not at all.
But in a sense, you don't build a story around your emotion. So isn't that helpful to an extent?
Well, you could say that's helpful, but I mean, it's not. I would say rather than helpful, I would just say it's easier.
Okay.
Rather than helpful, because we're not talking about how, you know, there's no one for it to be helpful for. It's much easier for the human being, though, when emotions are not dealt with. It's the dealing with the emotion and the sense that, well, this emotion isn't right, I need to deal with that. There's something wrong with feeling this way. I shouldn't feel this way. That's really where all the sense of I need to deal with this comes from. And there's nothing wrong with any emotions. I will say particularly the emotions that are usually seen as the ones that I don't really want. And the two that really come to mind, natural emotions, I just say that they just naturally occur, are anger and sorrow, anger and sadness, because most of us had a lot of conditioning that they were both wrong in some way.
Right.
Well, they're both indicators. What we were taught as embryonic selves when we were young children was that sadness means there's something wrong. Usually something wrong with me, or something wrong with my relationships, or something wrong with the world. And anger, that anger is to be repressed because it's not acceptable. It's not okay to be angry. Well, of course it's okay to be angry. There aren't any emotions that aren't okay. So really what we're speaking about is the illusion that emotions need to be dealt with at all.
Okay. Thank you.
But on a positive note, Jenny, that is a lot easier than trying to deal with them. What I'm trying to express is that it can be that the one whose job it was to deal with them, they're made redundant, they get the sack, or they're just put out of work. Or they don't turn up for work, you could say. That's probably the better analogy. They just stop turning up for work. You know, the work was work on myself, work on my emotions, work on my thinking, work on my career, work on my relationships. And they stop turning up for work. And that can be tricky for the other employees who are still working really hard. And they go, well, where are you? Why are you not working on yourself anymore? And they won't be happy, you know, because they're still doing all the work. So it wouldn't necessarily be popular with the other workers working on their lives. But there we go. Sorry, I don't know what sort of answer that was really.
David and Sigrid have their hands up. So David's first. Oh, you're muted, David.
Hi, David.
Happy birthday, one day late.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, apropos, not a lot actually. I was just thinking the other day, you know, how the number of rabbit holes I disappeared in, kind of, you know, conceptually around this. You know, we all do, I think, you know, and desperate for our stances to be endorsed, and you know, this is how I see it, blah blah blah. And, you know, oh God, I get exhausted with it. And I happened to be reading something only yesterday, and I wondered if I could share it, which I thought was lovely on this.
I love it when you share something.
I'm not suggesting you're going to agree with it, and I'm not sure I do entirely either, actually.
All right.
But it really helps me take a step back, actually. And it's a couple of sentences, and it's by, it doesn't quite make the 25-year rule, I'm afraid, but it's Nizar Bidata. And didn't quite make the cut, but there we are. He did his best. So here we go. He says, be careful. What a great opener, those two words, be careful. The moment you start talking, you create a verbal universe, a universe of words, ideas, concepts, and abstractions, interwoven and interdependent, most wonderfully generating, supporting, and explaining each other, and yet all without essence or substance, mere creations of the mind. Words create words, reality is silent. I just love that. I mean, you might not, but because the words are the silence, we know that. But
Oh no, it's pretty good.
It's Shakespearean.
I mean, it's pretty good. Says, you know, I'm sitting in judgment on the Sagadata. Yeah.
Oh no, why not?
Oh yeah, it's pretty good. It's not all that, but I've heard better. But it's pretty good. Yeah.
Listen, some
You know,
some so-called radical non-Jews dish him completely. It's like the punks dishing the Beatles or something. Do you know? I mean,
yeah.
But it's so wonderfully expressed. It helps me take a step back from the.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all really. That business of things being self-generating. You know, just you can't.
Yeah. But it's also really, it may also be obvious that there's no problem with that either. You know,
No, exactly, and that's
it might be seen that that's,
of course,
one of the most beautiful things about being human is language. I mean,
yeah, and
it's absolutely beautiful, but it does, you know, as he said, be careful.
It's such a great opener. I think it's be careful, you know.
The trouble with the be careful bit is, though, of course, it might sound that you could choose to not, you know, to not use language or to get closer with this without the language and the abstractions, which is not true.
But I mean, I think, you know, he's just giving you a wee leg up here. I mean,
it's lovely.
Anyway, that's it.
Oh, thanks, David. Yeah, it's lovely.
Yeah, it was really nice. Sigrid, go ahead.
Sigrid.
Can't hear her. We can't hear you.
Sigrid, we can't hear you.
Now you're unmuted, but we still can't hear you.
No, there's something wrong with your microphone.
Okay. If you're on Sigrid, if you're on a laptop, down in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a mute button. There's a little arrow next to it, and you can change your audio settings in there. So it might just be that you need to select your microphone. Maybe if you want to have a go at that, you could come back.
David's just written that is page 429 in I Am That, which the fact that it's 429. There's 429 pages of that stuff. Bloody hell. Wow.
And it's most of it's as good as that, I think, in its own way.
No, the thing is, I struggled with it, David. I have to say, you know, of course, I bought I Am That. If you've been a seeker, I'd be surprised there are many people here who haven't bought that book and then gone, bloody hell, that's heavy.
Well, can I say something?
Yeah.
And I'm only half joking about her getting dished by the radical non-dual folks, because, you know, he does talk about meditation and things. But people seem reluctant to cut him some slack. I mean, I Am That can be very dualistic in some ways, actually.
Yeah.
In some ways.
Yeah.
By the time you get to, and I'm sorry, I don't want to be pedantic here, but,
Well, no.
But consciousness and the absolute, the final, you know, his very last words, he's dying of cancer. The sessions last for sometimes just a couple of sentences a day, get less and less and less. And at the end, the final sentence, I mean, I won't spoil it for you, it's a total killer. But by that stage, any hint of duality has gone completely. You have come here just to commit suicide, he says. It goes on and it's endless. But for some reason, folks won't cut him slack in that way, that even he progressed, evolved. Things were so stripped down towards the end.
Right.
Why not? And I would say Tony Parsons is on the same route. You know, The Open Secret, as I say, it reads like a meditation manual compared to what he's saying now.
Yeah, it is different.
So, and that happens, you know. And I personally think we have to accept that. You know? For me, he's the
Oh
Beatles.
no, it's all fine. Yeah, I like the quote that you just said.
Okay. Thank you.
But you know, as much as I like that, it's, you know, I still prefer Yuji saying, "Don't listen to a fucking word. It's just the barking of a dog."
Yeah,
See,
well,
me is closer.
well,
it just feels much, because it's the thing about Nisargadatta is it's so intellectual. I mean, it really is. Considering he wasn't an intellectual himself,
he couldn't read or write.
Exactly. I mean, for me, the language he used for being a man who, you know, had virtually no education is just beyond belief. Yeah.
Yeah, but he talks about cock and bull stories in the way that Yuji says, you know, don't, you know, and I love the cock and bull stories, you know.
Yeah.
You know, until this arises, it's cock and bull stories. There's nothing you can say really that makes any sense. But then he pads it out for 500 pages, and that's just one.
Yeah, he was good at a bit of padding.
Right.
Thanks, David.
I noticed Sigrid disconnected and reconnected. Does that mean you've got audio now?
Do I?
Ah, yes, you do.
Yes.
Oh, wow, great. I don't know what was running. There was something running in the back that was getting in the way. Hi, Tim.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Let's see. What's my question? How do I put this? Well, in my experience in this life, this bizarre life, I have a memory from childhood where, and that memory left me. It was an interaction with my mother, and it left me in this sort of confusion. Yeah, didn't understand, and I think I lived a lot of my life as a child not understanding her responses to things, and it became clear to me recently that that has lingered so perpetually as this undercurrent of it was interesting you started talking about understanding, this addiction to understanding.
Yeah.
I mean, that this was, and I had not seen that until just recently, and how it was like, but I have to laugh too, because it's just nuts. It's just nuts. And but it's been this constant source of security.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I think I understand something, you know, it slips right through my fingers.
Yeah.
I think it's wild. It's so wild. I don't know if it's like nearing closer and closer. I don't know if that's a thing, but to not understanding, because that feels really terrifying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well, you've rested on that, you know, that's what self rests on, my knowledge and my understanding. And it's endless, that desire, that because of course ultimately there's no understanding. There is no understanding of life. And so if self gets a glimpse of that, it feels like the abyss. It feels like the void. It feels like free fall. It feels like the very ground I stand on is falling away. It feels that there's no handholds. And yeah, it's because I have used understanding. I've used the illusion that I can know and I can manage, I can control as a security blanket. And yeah, it's a very difficult place for me to be in if it becomes clear.
Yeah. So it's a strange, it's, oh, what do I say? That, what you just said, all that.
All that.
And also like just a giggle, like it's just like, oh my
Yeah.
friggin' God, like what the hell, what the actual hell is yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
it can be terrifying and hysterically funny.
Yeah, at the same time.
Yeah,
At the same time.
yeah. Because if it's undeniable, that's funny. But of course, it's dreadful because I may still be clutching at straws, clutching for handholds, looking for a foothold somewhere. Surely there's something solid that I can still stand on.
But I see that, and then I'm like, there is a strange love for that. There's a strange, like, what's the word? Wait a second, it's coming. What's the word? Kind of like a charm. It's charming. Somehow. Do you know what I mean? It's endearing is the word.
Well, yeah, it's love, so of course that must be endearing.
I love that word. I don't think I've ever used that word.
Yeah, well, you know, I went to Tony for years and he just always just called it the beloved, and I go, what the hell is he talking about? The beloved. So he'd go, you know, empty, nothing, and then he'd call it the beloved, and you go, what the hell? But of course there isn't a beloved or the beloved, but you know, that's how he references what you're calling the charming, the love, the endearment, yeah.
The funny thing is I didn't realize this was happening until I just said it to you.
No, that is often how it is.
So thank you for the opportunity for me to just be here and show up and say those words. That was important to me.
That was lovely.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the paradoxes just don't end. It's all paradoxical. There's, you know, how can this be so dreadful, so empty, and yet full of love? That makes absolutely no sense. There was no, you know, you try as hard as you like, you will not make sense of that shit. You know, and what we're speaking of is the end of the trying to make sense of that. Oh no, that is how it is. And, you know, no one's going to accept that. You'll say it and people go, oh, that's just nonsense. Well, here it is. That nonsense. One of the great freedoms is that life, there is absolutely no desire. The desire to make sense of life dies. It's not going to make sense. It almost is rational. I say it's nonsense, but it's almost rational, because if the futility of it becomes so glaringly apparent, then the desire dies. And that desire to make sense and why called me, they're not two different energies. That is that seeking energy, that desire to, I must know, I must know the truth. I must know reality. I must know the absolute, and I don't want your half-baked reality from someone else. I need to know it for myself. Well, that can stop, seemingly. And then you haven't got a clue what. So I'm not saying it stops and then in its place you will find this, this, and that. No, you won't. There's nothing in its place. There's nothing in place of me. There was no me to be replaced. There's there's nothing lost and nothing gained. It's no prize at all. But it's the only prize. This is the prize. You didn't earn it. You did not earn this prize. You didn't deserve it. You don't deserve it. There are no qualifications required. There's no knowledge required. There are no requirements required. That's why it feels like love. No conditions. All conditions.
Andreas has his hand up.
Yes, yeah. Hello, Tim.
Hi, Andreas.
You said the desire of knowing dies. So is it also with the desire of experiencing, having good feelings, fun, emotions? Is this also dying in a way, or is it?
Yeah, you could say in a way, but the natural desire is still there. I mean, so I think the desire for knowledge is something. I think the best analogy is to say it's much more like living like an animal. You know, I don't think there's many dogs or cats who desire knowledge. And but what they do desire is their dinner. And if they see another dog they fancy, they might fancy a bit of that as well. And if they're tired, they desire some rest and some sleep. And they might like being stroked.
Yeah, I'm asking this because when I hear this message, in a way, there is a big relief. There's such, wow, yes.
Yeah.
And with this wow, yes, comes immediately the desire of holding on to this wow, yes.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then the me is again there. No,
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that sounds very familiar. So if I was describing where Tim was, he was in a similar place to what you've just described for many, many years.
Mm.
But, you know, it's just a story, Andreas. It's of no significance. But yeah, it does. The thing is, the holding on is the desire. You know, they're not too, you know, the desire to hold on is the holding on itself. It's all illusory. There is nothing to hold on in what we're speaking of.
Mm.
There's nothing to hold on to.
In a way, it's a sad message, or it makes me sad. And
Yeah, yeah, it is sad. We're talking about the loss of everything that you ever dreamt of. And what you dreamt of is what you say you have now, what you have had in the past, and what you dream you might have in the future. All of it. It's the annihilation of all of that. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's no greater sadness than the loss of everything that I've held dear as mine. It is incredibly sad, but I mean, that is how life is. I mean, this is brutally. I mean, it's just being brutally frank about life, brutally honest, and there is a brutal honesty about this. It leaves no sentimentality. There's no room for it. And self is essentially very sentimental. You know, I'm very sentimental about my life. I am. You know, it's a romantic story. And by the way, the most romantic stories are the most tragic ones.
yeah,
You know, self loves the tragedy of my life. I can romanticize that just as much as, you know, the usual romance, what we think of as romanticizing, which is, you know, finding true love and finding happiness and living happily ever after. Oh no, I can easily romanticize, self will romanticize how dreadfully hard done by I've been, or, you know, how difficult my life has been, how I've overcome adversity, and or, you know, how proud, all the pride. This is a complete loss of pride. Pride is absolutely mine. Pride dies a death, and I am. Self will not want to let pride go. They'll hold on for dear life. That's really right at the core of sense of being me.
what do you mean by pride? Pride of
Pride in
me?
I can have pride in my achievements, but of course, a lot of selves are very proud of their failures as well. Guilt is just the other side of pride, by the way. You know, I'm really ashamed of what I've done. I'll hold on to that as well, because self doesn't mind whether it's positive or negative. What it does is it makes me feel very real, and that's all self is, the energy of trying to ensure that I feel real. And
That's fun. I'm more familiar with guilt.
yeah,
Now I realize, okay, pride is, yeah, it's really the opposite. It's the same thing. It's
it really is. They're sort of two opposite ends of the same energy of, this is what I did. This is my life. And of course my identity. So I don't know. Self doesn't mind what my identity is as long as I have one. I know who I am. So, you know, in my guilt and my achievements, whether it's positive or negative, as long as I'm, you know, they're real to me, then I know who I am. I am my story.
Um,
But you don't have to lose, you know, you can self can hear this message and think, oh, the story is the problem. Story is not a problem. Stories are just stories. That's what human beings do. We're storytellers. But if you're honest, Andreas, you know, the only story that really matters is your story. And you can listen to other people's stories, but if you tell me they're equal to yours, I'll call you a liar. Because the whole nature of self is this self-absorption in my story. Because I'm the center of the universe. The world revolves around me. simply because everything is in relation to me. I mean, it really is. The whole feeling of being me is that I'm in the middle of this. And everything else is orbiting around me. And that's an illusion. Of course it isn't. It's just not, is it? Nothing else notices you. You are the one who notices you, no one else. And by the way, you don't have to notice that there are no others. There simply are no others without you. In the absence of you being the center, there's just, human beings, just like there's birds flying across the sky. There's human beings appearing and disappearing. But there aren't any others. Because there's only others because there's me.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, thanks, Andreas. Nice to see you. Well, that's just about time. Neil Sanis has got the Nothing Cafe. If you'd like to meet and have a chat with some, there won't just be people from this meeting. There'll be some others there. And if you don't know what happens, you just, have you put the link in there?
Yeah, I put the link in, but basically, yeah, there's usually about 25 people there, and just chat. Neil does this random thing where he throws us into rooms of 4 maybe for 20 minutes, and then everybody has a chat, and then throws into another room, and you can stay or go or whatever.
If you've missed socializing, because of lockdown, then it's brilliant.
Yeah.
If you've not missed socializing, don't go.
Yeah, so you can click on the link in the chat, and that will just take you to a little page where you just put in your name, and then it'll take you straight to the meeting. But as Tim says, if you don't like socializing, don't go.
Eligo's sense of humor is he's like, fuck you, Tim. Thanks for that. I've decided to give it a go of just doing 1 meeting a week as well. So there won't be a meeting on Monday.
Oh my God.
And oh my God. Stop it. You just said fuck me, Eligio. Don't complain. And,
Tim, you're my guru forever.
Fuck you. What? I've lost my track now. So there'll be just Thursday meeting next week. It may just, I'll see how it goes. Anyway, so I'm going to do 1 a week for the next week and then see. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. Do you know what you're going to do? No, of course you don't. Well, I was going to say something else though. I can't remember. Anyway, well, thanks for coming. And yeah, so what I'm saying, for those of you who usually get an invitation, don't think you've been left out. I'll just send out invitations to next Thursday. There will be 2 meetings the following week for definite, because there's Nothing FM on Wednesday and then Thursday, normal meeting. So thanks very much for coming.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tim.
Lovely to see you all.
Adios.
Thanks, Darren.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks a lot, all of you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.